It's always exciting to be in a room full of people who are eager to learn, grow, and take that important step toward building financial independence. Today, we're going to talk about something that has changed the financial future of countless people: buying your first rental property. More specifically, we're going to explore what the best first rental property for beginners looks like, what you should consider, and how you can set yourself up for long-term success with that very first investment. Now, getting into real estate can be intimidating. There's so much advice out there, some good, some not so good, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. People often imagine that they need a ton of money, insider knowledge, or that real estate investing is only for the rich or well-connected. But that's just not true. Real estate can be one of the most accessible and powerful wealth-building tools for everyday people. And the first step, your first rental property, is the most important one. So what makes a great first rental property? The answer isn't just the one that makes the most money. That's part of it, sure. But for beginners, the best first property is the one that balances profit potential with manageable risk, ease of management, and long-term growth. It's the one that helps you learn the ropes without putting you in over your head. And that means thinking beyond just numbers. A lot of beginners make the mistake of going for what looks like the biggest deal or the cheapest property, thinking they'll fix it up and make a killing. Maybe they've watched too many house flipping shows on TV. But what works on television doesn't always work in the real world. Your goal with your first rental should be to start small, learn the process, avoid major pitfalls, and build confidence. This isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Let's start with property type. For most beginners, the best type of property to start with is a single family home or a small multi-family unit like a duplex or triplex. Single family homes are simple. They tend to attract long-term tenants, usually families who often treat the property with care and stay longer. This reduces your turnover costs and gives you more predictable income. A duplex or triplex, on the other hand, lets you generate more rent from one property, and you also have the opportunity to house hack, where you live in one unit and rent out the others. This can dramatically reduce your own living expenses while building equity in your investment. Location is everything in real estate, and it's especially important when buying your first rental property. You want to look for a property in a stable or growing neighborhood. Think of areas with good schools, access to transportation, proximity to jobs and shopping. These are places where people want to live. A nice working-class neighborhood with steady demand is often a better bet than trying to buy something cheap in a distressed area. Sure, the price tag might be lower in those areas, but the headaches are usually bigger: more tenant turnover, more maintenance issues, more risk. And speaking of maintenance, your first rental should be relatively turnkey. Now, I'm not saying you need something brand new, but you don't want to buy a full-blown fixer-upper either unless you have serious experience in construction or a reliable team already in place. As a beginner, you want to avoid getting buried in renovations. The goal is to get your feet wet, not dive into the deep end. Ideally, the property should be in good condition or only need minor cosmetic upgrades. Things like painting, replacing carpets, or updating fixtures are manageable. Replacing the roof, electrical system, or plumbing, not so much. Now let's talk about financing. One of the great things about buying your first rental property is that you may qualify for owner-occupied financing if you choose to live in the property, even for just a year. This means lower down payments, better interest rates, and more flexible loan terms. FHA loans, for example, allow you to put down as little as 3.5%. VA loans, for those who qualify, require no money down at all. This is a smart way to get started without tying up all your cash. Even if you're buying as a pure investment, conventional financing is still a solid option. Just be prepared to put down at least 20–25% and make sure your credit and income are in good shape. One piece of advice here: don't stretch your budget too thin. It's tempting to buy the most expensive property you can qualify for, but that can backfire quickly. You need room in your budget for repairs, vacancies, and unexpected expenses. Real estate has a lot of moving parts, and cash flow is king. Don't just look at whether the rent covers the mortgage. Make sure there's a healthy buffer. This brings me to one of the most important concepts in rental investing: cash flow. Positive cash flow means the property brings in more money each month than it costs to own. That includes mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, repairs, and property management. A good rule of thumb for beginners is to aim for at least a few $100s per month in net cash flow. It might not sound like much, but it adds up. More importantly, it keeps you out of trouble if things go wrong. A property that breaks even or loses money is a liability, not an asset. To analyze a property properly, use the 1% rule as a quick screening tool. This rule says the monthly rent should be at least 1% of the purchase price. So if a house costs $200,000, you want to see rents of around $2,000 per month. It's not a hard rule, and it doesn't work in every market, but it helps you spot properties worth deeper analysis. Also, remember that a rental property is not just an income stream, it's an asset that appreciates over time. The best first rental property gives you both monthly cash flow and long-term equity growth. So while you want to prioritize cash flow in the beginning, don't ignore the potential for appreciation, especially if you're buying in a city or area with strong population growth and economic development. Another key factor is property management. A lot of beginners think they'll save money by managing the property themselves, and that can work, especially if you live nearby and have the time. But it can also be a headache. Tenants call at all hours, things break, rent collection can be a pain, and dealing with evictions or legal issues isn't fun. A good property manager typically charges 8–10% of the monthly rent, but they can save you time, stress, and mistakes. If you're not ready to deal with tenants directly, factor in the cost of professional management from the start. And when you're evaluating your first deal, always do your due diligence. That means inspecting the property thoroughly, checking rental comps in the area, and verifying all expenses. Don't rely on the seller's numbers. Check everything yourself. Look at utility bills, tax records, insurance quotes, and maintenance history. And definitely don't skip the inspection. A small issue today can turn into a big expense tomorrow. Another thing I want to mention is mindset. The best first rental property for a beginner is not just about the numbers, it's also about building your confidence and understanding the business. Real estate is not get rich quick. It's build wealth slowly but surely. It's about playing the long game. When you own that first property, you start to learn firsthand how to screen tenants, manage repairs, deal with leases, and solve problems. You start to see how wealth is created not just from income, but from appreciation, loan paydown, and tax advantages. And you gain something even more valuable than money: experience. One last piece of advice: don't wait forever. A lot of beginners fall into analysis paralysis. They read every book, run every number, and watch the market for years without taking action. Now, yes, you should do your homework. You should run the numbers, understand the risks, and educate yourself. But at some point, you have to take the leap. There's never going to be a perfect property or a perfect time. But by starting with the right kind of property, simple, manageable, in a good area with solid numbers, you give yourself the best chance of success. Your first rental property is not going to make you rich overnight, but it can absolutely change your life. It can be the first step toward financial independence, toward passive income, and toward a future where your money works for you. And once you get that first property under your belt, everything becomes easier. You have experience, you have confidence, and you have momentum. So as you leave here today, I want you to think about what the best first rental property looks like for you. Think about your goals, your finances, your risk tolerance, and your long-term plan. Don't get distracted by hype or pressure. Stick to the fundamentals. Look for properties that are safe, simple, and solid. And when you find the right one, take action. When you're just starting out in real estate investing, simplicity and manageable risk are essential. As a beginner, it's tempting to chase after the big deal or the property that seems like it will provide the highest return. But often, this leads to complications that can quickly overwhelm you. The best first rental property is one that allows you to get your feet wet without diving into the deep end. Single-family homes or small multifamily units like duplexes or triplexes are perfect for this. These types of properties are not only easier to manage, but also tend to attract stable, long-term tenants, which helps ensure more predictable rental income. A single-family home is often the most straightforward choice for a beginner because it's a simple, familiar setup. You're renting out one unit to one tenant or family, which means you only need to deal with one set of issues at a time. There's also typically less tenant turnover in these properties, especially if they are in a desirable location, and families are often looking for stability. This makes property management much easier for someone just starting out. Similarly, small multifamily properties such as duplexes or triplexes can be great because they generate more rental income from a single property, which can help cover your costs faster. Plus, you can live in one unit while renting out the others, a strategy often called house hacking. This reduces your own living expenses and helps you build equity at the same time. Avoid properties that require major renovations unless you have experience or a reliable team in place. Fixer-uppers may seem like a great deal up front, but the repairs and ongoing management can quickly spiral out of control, especially for someone new to the business. Instead, focus on properties that need cosmetic work, things like painting, new flooring, or updated fixtures, which are less time-consuming and won't drain your budget. When selecting your first rental property, one of the most critical factors is location. A property's success is largely determined by its surroundings, and investing in a stable or growing neighborhood ensures demand for rental units remains steady. Areas with good schools, convenient transportation, nearby amenities like shopping centers or parks, and strong economic growth tend to attract long-term tenants. This not only makes the property easier to rent, but also lowers the risk of vacancies and allows you to maintain a consistent cash flow. A location in a neighborhood with potential for future development or gentrification is even better, as it increases the property's likelihood of appreciating in value over time. Once you've found a location that works for you, the next key factor is cash flow. Positive cash flow means the rental income from the property exceeds its expenses, including mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and any property management fees. A property that doesn't provide positive cash flow is more of a liability than an asset, and it can quickly become a financial burden. For beginners, ensuring your property has a healthy margin of cash flow should be a top priority. You need that buffer to cover unexpected expenses or periods of vacancy, as well as to give you peace of mind that your investment is sustainable. One way to quickly evaluate whether a property will generate positive cash flow is by using the 1% rule. This rule suggests that the monthly rent should be at least 1% of the purchase price. For example, if a property costs $200,000, the rent should be at least $2,000 per month. While this is just a rough guideline and not an absolute rule, it helps you avoid properties that may seem affordable upfront but won't generate enough income to cover all expenses. Your goal is to strike a balance between positive cash flow today and the potential for property appreciation over the long term. One of the most crucial steps in purchasing your first rental property is conducting thorough due diligence. Real estate is a significant investment, and rushing through the process can lead to costly mistakes. It's essential to inspect the property carefully, not just to check for any immediate issues, but also to understand the potential costs of any necessary repairs or improvements. Sometimes sellers may gloss over or underreport problems, so it's crucial to either hire a professional inspector or develop the ability to identify issues yourself. Pay attention to the age of major systems like the roof, plumbing, and electrical, as these can be expensive to replace if needed. Another important step is checking rental comps in the area. You need to have a clear understanding of the going rental rates for similar properties nearby. Comparing your potential investment with other properties can give you an accurate picture of its income potential and help you avoid overestimating what you can charge in rent. If your property can't generate enough income to cover the expenses, it's not a viable investment, regardless of the initial appeal. Don't rely solely on the numbers provided by the seller or real estate agents. Always verify everything. For example, check the property's tax history, utility bills, and insurance rates. These costs can vary significantly and can impact your cash flow. Being diligent with these checks can prevent unpleasant surprises once the property is yours. Additionally, manage your expectations from the start. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick venture. Your first property should serve as a learning experience. You'll gain confidence in managing the investment, dealing with tenants, and handling repairs. It's okay to start small. With the right mindset and strategy, your first rental can set the stage for future investments. The experience you gain and the momentum you build will be invaluable as you continue to grow your portfolio.